Hello and welcome to another Countryside programme here on Manx Radio with Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. And it's daffodil and spring lamb time of the year, isn't it, on the farms?
It's a really lovely time of year, Simon, and it won't be long till the clocks change as well.
Yeah, and that it's always one because, you know, it affects humans in different ways, doesn't it? But the animals can be wondering what's going on.
Oh,
roosters, what on earth? You know, and cows, they want feeding. They're thinking, hey, come on, and sheep, don't they?
Different time of day. This is it. But it is always lovely, isn't it? You know, the green shoots are coming. Like you say, the daffodils are out, and seeing the spring lambs around the countryside, it is always a real nice feeling, isn't it? It really gets you ready for the summer ahead of us.
Yes, and I'll be finding out more on this week's programme about the Sala, which is the Asian unicorn, they tell it, a type of antelope or deer. And there's two guest speakers on the island at the St Mark's Country Park who were invited there, Douglas Richardson and Simon Hedges, and they were telling me all about it. And Lorraine, of course, as well. She was the one who got in touch with me about this event that was on, and I went along and listened. Just caught the end of it, but some interesting questions at the end, which were very interesting as well. And it's just nice to hear about people so willing to help and promote these animals that we don't really know much about, especially the other parts of the world where they're very, very endangered and very little's known about them.
That's it, raising money to put towards the looking after them, or upping the technology so you can monitor them and keep an eye on them, or even breeding programmes. It's always essential, and to spread the word, there's lots of people that would love to get involved and do their bit to save this endangered animal, because there is quite a few species around the world now that are nearly extinct, so that they're trying their best, but it's always a race against time, isn't it?
Yeah, and one thing on a lighter note, it's a similar sort of thing. You know, we have plants and vegetables and all sorts of things that people home grow with their allotment or just their gardens. And the Laxey Seed Swap is one such event where these things can crop up as well, and they can get advice.
They really do. And last year there was a couple of rare species of seeds turn up, and it did leave the organisers puzzled. And you know, they're really well established growers and gardeners there in Tanya Anderson and Brenda Killick, but it did leave them reeling. And I wonder this year how they got on with the various species that they did plant. And it is always a great turnout too, Sam, with a good raffle and cakes in the afternoon too.
It is, and you can hear all that in full now in Countryside. Firstly, Kiri, a little bit of a worrying thing to mention about. We can't talk too much about it, obviously, because the Isle of Man Constabulary will be involved in it. But people pinching hay, and it's been a tough enough year without people having to come and confront that, isn't it?
It is a pretty poor trick to be doing, and there is a little bit of hay and straw around, and you know, various hauliers and different merchants do have contacts, and it's such a shame that this is happening on our island. And you know, this is one thing you don't normally hear about, but yeah, that's terrible news.
Yeah, I remember up at Derby there was a couple of farms around the estates up at Derby years ago. People used to pinch an odd turnip and things from them, but I think it was more survival instinct than anything there. But you know, there are lots of important items and bits and pieces around farms that are so important. They may not seem it to people.
Well, this is right. Someone's fodder is absolutely crucial, especially now the weather's turned a little bit colder again. But, you know, winter's not over till it's over, and normally is out towards the end of April, and that fodder would have been spoken for. So it's a poor thing to be doing, but it's a sign of the times, I suppose. You know, once we'd leave our cars and sheds all unlocked, but now it makes you question, you know, lock things away, quad bikes and tractors. You don't know what's going on around the countryside, unfortunately.
No, and this time of year, of course, we'll just give it a mention because it's bound to crop up in the next few months. Lots of farmers lambing now as well at this time of year.
Yeah, very busy time ahead.
The dogs, the worry.
It is a very big worry, but yeah, keep your dogs on leads and be very vigilant around the countryside, especially now the bit of heat will come and the sheep will get on their backs too. So do keep an eye out for any sheep on their backs and inform the farmer or get some help, because they don't last too long there, and great help is needed.
No, indeed. Well, if I mentioned a Sala to you, would you know what I was talking about?
I really wouldn't.
Well, they are classed as the Asian unicorns, and they're a type of antelope type of animal. And they only have been spotted in Vietnam in a country called Laos which obviously is next door to it. And these have been studied by many people only since their discovery quite recently, really, in terms of animal discovery in years. And there was a talk held at the St Mark's Country Park, and I went along to find out, and I got a chat with two of the guest speakers who were there on the day, Simon Hedges, but firstly Douglas Richardson. And I spoke to him, and he's had many years of dealing with captive breeding and involved in zoos and conservation projects worldwide for over 40 years. And firstly I asked him how come the trip on the Isle of Man came about.
We were asked to come over and talk to some people and actually try and raise a little bit of awareness about Saola and the need for conservation assistance.
Now, Saola, I must admit, it's something I've never really heard of before. Just describe what type of animal it is.
Well, I mean, not many people had heard of it, and it was only actually became known to the outside world in 1993. So
that close to now.
Well, that was the fascinating thing, that something as big as a saola, imagine something about the size of a pony at shoulder height, but with long, straight horns, occurring in countries that had been very well explored. So, yeah, it was something of a surprise when they came to light.
Now, the worrying thing is there doesn't appear to be many of them left.
No, it's, basically they've gone from discovery to critically endangered, nearly extinct in 20 years. And the problem is that traditional protection in the wild has not worked, and much of that is down to the level of the wildlife trade in Indochina. There's a mountain strip called the Annamites that basically skirts the border north to south between Vietnam and Laos, and it's only in those forest pockets along that mountain ridge where the species is found. They've never been in any zoos in the West, or indeed in captivity anywhere outside of those two countries.
How endangered are they?
Well, the formal classification is critically endangered. I suppose a more precise one would be very close to extinction, would more accurately describe their status.
Does anyone know the real amount that's left?
The problem with forest species is they're really hard to count. So you're making informed estimates based on the available evidence. And in the case of the saola, there is an increasingly smaller amount of evidence, be it photo traps or stories from local villagers or whatever. So we are at that, 1 minute to midnight on the extinction clock as far as the saola is concerned.
Really?
Obviously, they are very hard to track. Even for the local hunters that operate in these areas, they're not a common prey item. But what we do know, and this is true of many forest hoofed animals, they actually do tame down really well. They're not as nervous as a plains living gazelle is, for example. They get used to people very quickly. So there's a little bit of an interesting dichotomy behaviorally there.
And what are they getting hunted for? Are they of value, horn-wise and things like that?
Well, this is the interesting thing, is that almost every type of wildlife in Indochina has a value, be it as a food item or as an ingredient for traditional medicine. But the saola is not a targeted species, which makes it even more extraordinary that they are as rare as they are.
Why are they getting rarer?
Well, the primary method for collecting wildlife for use in the region is using wire snares. And wire snares do not discriminate between a saola, a bear, a small deer, or a monkey. So they're being caught inadvertently.
Right. So, of course, you've been involved in saving endangered species in the past. And what can you do for the Sala?
Well, and the situation is so dire that really the only viable alternative we have now is to actually capture as many Sala as we possibly can and bring them into purpose-built conservation breeding facilities. And we're about to start building the first one in Vietnam. So we're in a situation where we have no choice but to use captive breeding because conservation in the wild has not worked.
And people, some people are against this type of thing, but as you say there, it seems to be the only way forward for this, and it seems to have worked with other species, doesn't it?
Well, exactly. I mean, the Sao La, though it looks like an antelope, is actually more related to wild cattle, and the very first managed species, zoo animal, if you like, was the European bison, and that became extinct in 1926 in the wild. Luckily, there was some animals in captivity, and now there's about 4,000 living back out in the wild. But had it not been for the captive population, the European bison would be extinct today. And so we want to learn from that particular species lesson and apply what we can to Sao La.
And I heard you're talking about the condors and things like that in America that were nearly gone on people, and it was only sort of went to a bit of a government vote, didn't it?
Well, I mean, there was actually, with the California condor, which is a large vulture, there was actually a court case. The San Diego Zoological Society and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had decided they had to catch the last 11 condors. And a major conservation organization, the Sierra Club, took them to court because they felt that the condor should be allowed to go extinct with dignity. Luckily, they did not win their court case, and from a personal point of view, I'm not sure there's that much dignity in becoming extinct.
Well, Simon Hedges, let's get a chat with you about the Sala, because what I've been hearing, you've been out in the field with them, tracking them and finding out more about them.
Yes, I have spent quite a lot of my time over the years, over the last couple of decades, working in Southeast Asia, including in the range of the Sao La in Laos particularly. But it is a very, very elusive animal. As you probably heard in Doug's presentation, no field biologist has actually seen with their own eyes a wild Sao La in the forest. There have been some caught and kept in villages and in government buildings for brief periods before unfortunately they died, and obviously then they were seen. And there's now, with the increasing use of camera traps, automatic cameras in the forest, there are a number of photographs of the animal in the wild, but no, as I say, no field biologist, no Wester or indeed Lao or Vietnamese scientist has seen them with their own eyes in the wild.
So you've spent a lot of time out there and not had the pleasure yet?
Not yet, no. I've seen plenty of other things in the forest, including lots and lots of snares, which is one of the very big threats. Industrial level snaring across the Annamite mountain range is a massive threat to all of the wildlife, including Sao La. In some cases, I think local people are snaring to survive, but that's increasingly rare these days. Probably not at all true in Vietnam, and not particularly true, I don't think, very much anymore in Laos. People are snaring for bushmeat because of bushmeat has a sort of premium value. People like it in preference to meat they can buy in the market. But they don't have to. This is not very often subsistence hunting. It's hunting because it's a traditional thing to do. They like doing it, and there's a sort of premium on the meat, but it's not to stop people starving in most cases.
You've gone out there obviously with the vision of trying to get these numbers back up. I mean, how do the locals take people like coming over and trying to do something like that? Is it a bit of a mix?
Yeah, very much a mix. Yeah, obviously, I mean, like in any culture, there are some people who are supportive of conservation and other people who are not particularly interested in it. Maybe some people who are actually opposed to it. Direct opposition to conservation is actually pretty rare. a lot of people, including particularly the poorer people, have got immediate day-to-day problems to deal with. A lot of people in Laos live in very remote villages. Access to health services and so on is difficult, and so that's more their kind of immediate priority, which is entirely understandable. But there's very little opposition to conservation, and in conservation well managed should allow for people to coexist with wildlife. The Lao law allows certain species to be hunted. So, for example, some of the deer species can be hunted. So it's essential that conservationists address that and make sure that local people can get some benefit from conservation areas they're living in or next to. So being, for example, able to hunt certain species at a sustainable level to provide the meat if they need meat for subsistence, or even if it's just for that premium of bush meat that they like to eat. I mean, that isn't necessarily incompatible with conservation. A well-managed conservation area with zones can allow for certain areas which are totally protected, other areas where people can hunt traditionally and so on. What we need to avoid is the indiscriminate industrial blanket level snaring, which is what we see at the moment. And actually often in Laos, it's people coming in from Vietnam doing it. It's not local people doing it. Local people in Laos, in my experience, tend to fish quite a lot. There's a lot of fishing going on. Lao people really like fishing, to eat the fish. They like camping out in the forest and eating fish. They obviously are doing some snaring. But in some of the key protected areas now in Laos, the threat is actually outsiders coming in and doing it, to take back and sell the meat in Vietnam.
But your type of work, even away from the Salas, has probably took you to many places around the world.
Yeah, I spent a lot of my life working on elephants. I've been working on conservation for just over 30 years. 18 of those was working on elephants in Asia and Africa for the Wildlife Conservation Society. So I have travelled, very extensively across Asia and Africa, working on a variety of elephant projects, helping to reduce poaching for ivory, helping to reduce human-elephant conflict. Because one of the big problems with elephants is people in the West think they're gentle giants. Actually, they're not. Living next door to elephants is actually pretty frightening and can be dangerous. And elephants can come out and trash your whole year's or whole season's harvest in one night, and of course that is devastating for a poor farmer in Indonesia or India or Kenya or somewhere. So one of the key problems we have to deal with is this so-called human-elephant conflict. So I spent a lot of my life working with local people trying to come up with novel ways of keeping elephants out of their fields.
How not to upset them.
How not to upset them, how not to upset the elephants, but also how not to allow them to come and eat things willy-nilly around protected areas, which produces a massive level of anger, understandable anger towards the elephants. The elephants then get killed in retaliation. So it's a very big conservation problem as well as a social problem for people.
But projects like that, working with the people from the countries and studying the animals, like the elephant project, it is working though, isn't it?
Working in some places and not in others. As with anything like that, I think it's a mixed bag, and I think one should always remember that conservation is a kind of a crisis discipline. We're often dealing as a conservation community with animals which are living at or plants or other all kinds of wildlife, all kinds of biodiversity. And many species are at very low levels, and that's when conservationists tend to get involved. And so inevitably there's quite a lot of failure as well as some successes. I think we need to increase the proportion of successes, and particularly in Asia, particularly in Southeast Asia, the number of successes are actually quite small. And so I think there's some very serious thought needs to be given how to do conservation more effectively in Southeast Asia, how to deal with the snaring problem, how to deal with industrial agriculture like oil palm plantations, coconut plantations, these kind of things. These are how to minimise conflict with people, because obviously there's a very large number of people living in Asia, and so we desperately need more imaginative, more effective ways of allowing for human-wildlife coexistence. It's vital that the message has got out there for how important it is to save biodiversity, both for its own sake, but also for humanity's sake as well. We're reliant on biodiversity. We're reliant on the planet. We can't trash the planet with no consequences to ourselves. So it's not just saving wildlife for wildlife's sake. It's saving wildlife for the benefit of everyone, including people as well as wildlife.
Simon Hedges and before that Douglas Richardson, who were two of the speakers at a wonderful talk at the St Mark Country Park. They're just on the outskirts of St Mark's, and wonderful facilities there. They've got plenty of rare old breeds there, Graham and the team, haven't they? But to invite these guests over and to hear such endangered species like that weren't really discovered till the early 1990s.
It is such a worry that there's so many animals that are becoming endangered species, or even some of them more recently extinct as well. So a lot of work going on behind the scenes trying to make breeding programs hopefully to keep these animals established. But Graham is very good at picking out some rare breeds for his park there for us all to enjoy and go and see, and hopefully he's able to keep the numbers in it and increase slowly and avoid the extinction of some of these rare breeds.
Yeah, indeed. And of course both of them saying that one of the difficult bits is that there is so many people in the world saying, don't be keeping things in zoos and parks and places like that. But if like he said, on the stroke of midnight the next day there could be, we haven't seen any of these. Well, they're
None
gone.
left.
And for people to say that they should go extinct with dignity, I don't know, something wrong. If you want more details, you can go to one of the websites, which is www.savethesala.org, and that is Sala spelled SAOLA. Or you can send an email to salawg@gmail.com, and there'll be plenty on the websites as well where you can do your bit to help out. You did your bit to help out at the seed swap.
Yes, the annual seed swap and plant share in Laxey is always a great turnout of growers and gardeners and children and just people wanting to get green-fingered and have a go of growing something new for the year.
You've been a few years now, though, Kiri, haven't you? I've been a couple of times once before, and you think there's only going to be one or two people with a couple of bags of seed wanting something for nothing, but it isn't nothing like that, is it? They're all keen to find out, you've grown these, how did you get on? Oh,
yeah, the chat about different species and rare plants and common plants and different recipes to make out of your various tomatoes. And it's so interesting and like-minded, but they're so friendly and keen to pass on the knowledge to beginners as well. So that's where the enthusiasm filters down to the children that attend that day. And it's great to see Laxey and Lonnon Allotment Association putting this on annually. And I'm Tanya Anderson.
Another great success here at the Seed Swap and Plant Share. It must take hours of organising from you.
I think to start off with the seed swap, it did take a lot of planning and organizing. Brenda and I have been doing this for years, and it's pretty much, now it's clockwork. And it makes it so much more enjoyable for us and everyone else who's here. Everyone knows how it works. It's simple, which is, I think, key for an event like this. Yeah, it's great.
But the donations today, Tanya, I believe they're going to a great cause.
Yes, so all the donations today and all the money that we are collecting from the raffle and the quiz are going towards the Laxey Allotment Shed and other projects that we'll have this year. And it's great because we desperately need the funds for it. At our site, we don't have individual sheds on plots. So we have to provide a space for people to keep their tools and keep them out of the elements. And it's also a place where we can also share seeds and plants as well on a regular basis as an association. So it is a really important hub to our allotment.
I believe, Tanya, this year that the tables are fuller than ever with seeds and plants that are partly grown. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, the generosity of people bringing in extra seeds and plants, it's amazing. And there's always so many more left over than we know what to do with. And so we always donate the seeds to a good cause. And we will likely donate them to a couple of organizations, but one of them is we'll be donating seeds to the Isle of Man Prison for their vegetable gardens. So in years past, we've also donated to the Children's Centre Community Farm. We also donated one year to an allotment that's run for homeless people on the Isle of Man. So there's lots of initiatives that could use the seeds. And so we like to choose different ones and to help support the community from the support that we get ourselves.
And it's quite simple, isn't it? The method in the whole of this today.
It really reflects the personality of Isle of Man people in that it's all based on honesty. You come in through the door, you organize your seeds, you take what you need, you leave a donation if you'd like, and I've heard of other seed swaps in other places that people will kind of be a bit cheeky with taking more. But we've never had that problem here. There's so much, and people are just so kind and generous.
Tanya, may I ask, what is your favourite green? Like, what do you really like about your garden?
I love berries, strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, thornless blackberries. I have lots of berries. They're my favorite. Yeah.
And are they difficult to grow?
No, I love perennials, so that basically fruits and veggies that come back year after year. It really saves a lot of time, and with berries, you get an awesome reward in the summer.
And like Brenda, she enjoys eating her own food. Is that something you really enjoy?
Oh yes. But it's the entire garden to plate experience, so that nurturing of seeds and plants and raising them and harvesting them and then cooking them and perhaps even preserving them, it really brings you back to the soil, to the land. It's great for mental health. It's great for stress levels,
It's got so many
Yes.
benefits. But not only that, the wildlife, the Manx wildlife, it's still in abundance, isn't it? But with places like this that are creating the environment.
When we first started our allotment in 2010, there were no birds. There was nothing. There were some rabbits running around. And now it is absolutely it's singing with birds and hedgehogs and all sorts of frogs. I've got actual frog spawn in my little pond right now.
Gosh, wow.
They've all hatched. I've got tadpoles. Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. So it's just creating such a wonderful place, isn't it? Not just for wildlife, but for yourself and everything that
For
we've said
everyone,
together.
yes.
Yeah. Ruth Brown, it's lovely to see you here at the Seed Pot and Plant Chair. What makes you come each year?
Well, I first saw it a couple of years ago advertised, and it just seemed a brilliant idea because, again, bits of seeds to swap was handy, and usually I've got plants I can split and bring them, and it's just nice to share things with other people. But it's a very social event by the looks of it.
Oh, it really is. So you must be quite green-fingered at home, so you'll be looking out for things to add to your garden.
Indeed, yes. Yeah, this is it.
And what do you particularly like about the plants that come here? Is there very different varieties, or would you find them in the normal garden centres?
Well, I suppose you would do, but it's just sometimes there's something and you think, oh, I've not seen that one for years, and then it's lovely to take it home and put it in your garden and let it spread. And it's even better because it's just a donation.
Oh, that's exactly it. And a lot of the plants, they look really, really healthy, and they're quite well established. Ideal for young people trying to get into the business.
Oh, this is it, great, because most of them, the things that are split up, they'll grow very easily, so they'd be easy for them to put in the garden and grow.
So do you think this is a good idea?
I think it's excellent, yes. I don't know if they do it anywhere else or not.
I've not heard, I believe it's nearly its 10th year of doing this, and
wow.
to have this amount of people still in attendance.
That's right, and we've come a long way, right from the other side of the island to get here.
Heidi, you've come to do a lovely demonstration here at the Seed Swap and Plant Share. It's a bit manic at the moment, but what a great turnout.
Oh, I know, it's amazing. It's absolutely packed. There's so many people here, and there's loads and loads of seeds to share or swap or donate for. So it's quite inspiring, actually. I'm feeling like I really want to get into the garden and get cracking.
The time of year is on, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
And your demonstration is the other side of it. It's using up the produce that all these plants grow, isn't it?
Once it's grown, I was thinking of doing like a tomato and red pepper soup, because lots of people can grow those over here. And then there's pea and mint soup, which is really nice. And you can do all sorts of things in the Thermomix. So you can make salads and everything as well. And I brought my little boy down for him to join in and see what it's all about.
So the mixer you're actually using, this is really, really modern. It's for the likes of me that's not very good to cook, but it's ideal, isn't it, for the family?
Yes, it's brilliant. It's called the Thermomix, and it's a super blender with over 12 different functions. So it actually does blend and grind and grate things, but also cooks, weighs, makes dough and steams as well. So, it's brilliant. You can just throw it all in, and because it weighs it, you can just add in the onions, chop them, then saute them, then add in all the other ingredients, and hey presto, you've got the soup ready-made, ready to go.
Isn't that lovely? Because one time you'd be there chopping away, have you got the right ingredients? It takes a lot of time, doesn't it? Whereas this is actually cutting out that altogether.
Yes, it is. And actually you can even pick recipes from their website, email all the ingredients to your phone, and then follow the on-screen. So if you can't cook, then it enables you to cook. And if you can cook, then it can take it to the next level. So lots of chefs and restaurants have them as well, but they're just as well used in domestic use as well. Yeah.
Brenda, what a wonderful afternoon we're having here at the Laxey Sailing Club. Yet again, a full house.
It's been pretty good. I don't know if we're victims of our own success, actually, because we did advertise quite heavily this year, and obviously people read the papers, dinosaurs like myself who don't have Facebook. So it's been very successful, and we're really, really pleased.
And it's lovely to see lots of donations. You know, people are bringing these plants off their own accord just to swap and change, and the little money pots are filling up. But everyone's so happy.
Well, it's a social occasion, really, isn't it? We meet these people once a year, and people have said, "Oh, can't you do it more often?" I'm not sure if that's practical.
And the lovely thing I felt was when I was going around the table looking in the boxes of seeds, I was getting so much advice. People would just talk to me and say, "Oh, you know, that's a really good hardy plant for outside," and that's exactly the advice we need.
We are full of it. Yeah. Whatever it may be, we are definitely full of it. No, it's good because you might have problems and someone else has gone through the same thing, and you help each other. It's a really nice little community. I mean, it's growing, but we do help each other, and it's nice to see the same faces every year. I think this is the 8th year we've done it now. I don't know where that time's gone, but obviously it's successful.
Yeah, this is it. And what do you particularly like growing, Brenda? Because there's so much choice in here. There's, for the beginners, for the most established. Is your garden the most flowery one in the summer months?
No, but it would make a wonderful couch grass lawn because it's taken over this winter and I'm battling against it. But, it's the usual. Now I grow what I want to eat rather than experimenting every year and being devastated when it doesn't work. So first of all, dig the weeds up, try and get the couch grass out, and I just love it.
So you say you grow your own veggies. What does that feel like when you're cooking your own stuff that you've grown and put all that hard work into?
Do you know what the biggest, very childish thrill is? Being able to walk down the aisle in Tesco thinking, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, and I don't have to buy anything. And I know no chemicals involved. I know what's gone on to it. Perfect.
And I think that's what's hitting home quite a lot more now. Local produce, support the local industries. You know exactly what you grow. You know it's only come from the farmer up on the hill. It's just simple, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. People could do so much more, even if they haven't got an allotment or a garden, even if it's just a pot. And that's the way things are going now. People with balconies who don't have gardens, they're starting to take an interest and grow maybe a few tomatoes. Well, that's just the beginning. And they might progress to an allotment or go on one of our waiting lists for one.
Well, this is true. And today, Brenda, like you've just said, there's children here, but there's a lot of middle 30s to 40s, people that my generation wouldn't really take an interest. And it's lovely to see that, they want to make a difference at home.
In the old days, an allotment, it was a load of old men in flat caps with sheds. And now we, in the Douglas site, we've just got a new sort of influx of people. And they're young, they've got families, and it's nice to see the kids coming up and helping. It's changed, and more ladies, dare I say, very sexist, but more women are involved now. Because it did used to be old men with sheds. And it's changed dramatically. It really has.
It's a really lovely change though, Brenda, surely.
Definitely.
And we've got a lot to be thankful for here also with this brilliant raffle yet again. I've got my tickets.
Well, yeah, it helps to, we pitch it against the costs because we do have to pay for the room and for advertising and what have you. But this year, most of the money will be going to the Laxey and Lonnan allotments because they are not allowed to have sheds on their allotments. They have a community shed and it's falling to pieces. So this will help them to get a new one.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? It really is. Oh, well, good luck, and I hope my ticket comes out on top.
So do I, and it's nice to see you again.
That was Tanya Anderson and Brenda Killick from the Seed Swap and Plant Share and some of the people in attendance.
Yes, plenty, because it's that time of year where people want to be cracking on with getting out in the gardens, isn't it? That hasn't been too bad, I suppose, weather-wise.
No, that's right. Some of the seedlings have been planted already, and like you say, you can have a window box, a country garden, anything. It doesn't really matter how big or small. You can always have room to grow something colourful and help the bees.
Do you keep any plants at home in the house?
Not in the house, but we have a nice array of daffodils at the minute. We like to plant a few bulbs each year and bring a bit of colour to the farm come the springtime. It definitely cheers everybody's mood.
Well, there we go. That was this week's Countryside programme. Similar themes. I mean, some plants, I suppose, are getting endangered as well over the years, aren't they? Vegetables, you know.
This is it. They go through phases of being fashionable and maybe not so fashionable. And it's great now that they chat about the wonky vegetables that turn up in the supermarkets. It's only what we grow in allotments in gardens at home. So why chuck them out? And it's nice to see them using them and the different types of species of plants. And you don't have to have a big garden to have a wonderful show. Just a few plant pots by the door.
Who would ever say in the Isle of Man it's the wrong shape?
Exactly.
I'd say so. Okay, we'll be back next week with more from the countryside. So for me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kiri Kermode.
See you then. Ta-da.
Bye-bye.